Countless JRPGs incorporate the theme of friendship into their stories. Some even take it a step further and implement gameplay systems to complement this theme. But Final Fantasy VII is one of the only RPGs I can think of where the entire power system is built around the idea of your party working together. This idea is achieved through the Materia system, which allows for some of the most fluid party building imaginable. Instead of building up the strength of individual characters, FF7 makes it feel like you build the collective strength of your party through leveling up your Materia. That's not to say that certain characters don't excel at certain roles, but more player choice is always good when it comes to role-playing. And that's the strength of the Materia system in Final Fantasy VII. It perfectly balances a job system level of customization while still having all of its characters maintain a sense of individuality. See, a problem I have with some job systems is how they can remove any sense of identity from a character. Sure, there are recommended and default classes, but if I can customize my party in any way I desire, then there's little reason for me to swap around my party members. While the Materia itself have the obvious commentary of mining the planet to utilize their powers, and thus pointing out the hypocrisy of Avalanche as they use them to combat Shinra, from a mechanical perspective, they also align beautifully with the narrative of FF7. See, Final Fantasy VII is a game about identity. Both Cloud and Sephiroth have an existential crisis when they learn they're not who they thought they were. Where Sephiroth never recovers from having his psyche shattered, Cloud is redeemed by his friends and the people who love him. This fits in with the Materia system, as the strength of the group comes from the Materia which they all help to improve. This collective strength means that, like Cloud, the strength of the party is interchangeable. It wasn't just one character that helped the party conquer their foes up to this point, it was how they all nurtured their collective Materia. So when Cloud doesn't know who he is anymore, the fact that his individual strength was never instrumental in reaching this point is a large factor in him regaining his sanity. Because no one person was inherently better than another, their abilities were impermanent and shared between them. Similarly, Cloud's identity was also borrowed. He took Zack's life from him and was living a life that wasn't his with strength he didn't earn. But in the world of FF7, all strength is shared between people who work together to achieve their goals. I know that this is a corny analysis, but hey, JRPGs are almost always corny, and FF7 is no exception. So using Materia as a metaphor for the power of friendship works as an arrogant parallel. See, JRPGs like Chrono Trigger would have your characters perform combo moves to represent camaraderie, and while many decades later, Final Fantasy VII would follow suit in Rebirth, the Materia incorporates everyone's strength and redistributes it however the player desires. Because oftentimes, when you get a new party member, you can take one look at their skills, notice they're not up to par with your current party, and bench them for the rest of the game. But that's hardly fair, as they're only at the bottom of their skill tree, so naturally they're going to start at their least interesting and complex state. Materia subverts this by allowing you to equip high-class spells onto new members immediately, making so trying out a new playstyle doesn't penalize you. However, beyond a gameplay perspective, Materia also shares a unique role in the narrative of FF7. Where magic and spells are usually viewed as extraordinary or special, in this game they're a commodity. They've been completely demystified and stripped of any special properties they might otherwise possess. In fact, their magical abilities are sold as products in the world, so it's only natural that the corporation that controls the supply and demand of this commodity would rise to a level of power even real-world corporations could only fathom. I brought up before the hypocrisy of Avalanche using these tools provided by Shinra against them, and it does raise the point of how Barrett justifies the use of products manufactured from the planet to use in battle. I wish this point was brought up in-game, but then Avalanche's entire ideology would quickly unravel. But the greatest strength of Materia, without a doubt, is how it allows for player-driven emergent storytelling. The Materia system allows you to create whatever subclass you want for each character, playing Cloud as a healer, Tifa as a black mage, or Red 13 as a summoner. This level of storytelling lets the player roleplay in ways usually only seen in job systems, which I said often risks erasing the individuality from characters. But by retaining certain traits like limit breaks and predefined stats, FF7's party strikes an immaculate balance between fully rounded characters for players to form connections with, and blank canvases for players to experiment and author however they want. While this can create a disconnect between story and gameplay, it ultimately makes for one of Final Fantasy's more memorable progression systems. Once again, this ties into Cloud's identity crisis, as just as he has to define who he is, it's up to the player to form a gameplay style for each character and figure out what role each of them will play. For more Final Fantasy VII essays, here's one talking about why Sephiroth's backstory is phenomenal, and I'll be back in 2 days.